Hey, what's up everyone, Yuma here, back with another video. In this one I'm going to be doing a boss tutorial on Corporeal Beast. Just a quick heads up, like with any other video, everything from equipment loadout to inventory setup is purely recommendations by me. So if you have anything that is slightly different or works better for you, that is totally fine. This is just what I used when I killed a beast myself. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. The Corporeal Beast has a total of 100,000 life points. Though not a significant amount, the Corporeal Beast deals high accuracy and damage, making the fight more challenging. The Corporeal Beast is capable of eating, summoning familiars and legendary pets who are serving as beasts of burdens. Familiars and pets that use their own abilities are fine for this fight. It's recommended that players should use a spear for this fight, as all damage dealt to the Corporeal Beast by a weapon other than a spear or a hasta is reduced by 50%. So the better the spear or hasta, the easier the fight. Protection prayers or curses only block 25% of damage dealt by the Corporeal Beasts instead of the usual 50%. If your damage output is high enough though, I recommend soul split instead of a deflect, prayer or curse. Okay, so now on to the recommendations I recommend for this fight. 80 plus combat and defense. 43 plus prayer, so you can use the basic deflected prayers, but I do recommend a little bit higher so you can use soul split if your damage output is higher. 80 plus weapons, so you can deal enough damage to the Corporeal Beast, and 80 plus armor to defend yourself from the Corporeal Beast attacks. It does hit quite high despite its level, so just be cautious of this. Magic protection or deflect magic or soul split for this boss. It depends on your DPS. If you hit decent DPS towards this boss, you can use soul split, but if not, I recommend the magic or deflect magic protections. Super potions if your herbal level isn't high enough, but if it is, I recommend overloads. This boss is poisonable, so I do recommend items like Cinderbane gloves or something that deals poison damage towards the Corporeal Beast. Because any weapon apart from a spear or hasta will deal 50% less damage, I do recommend one of these two types of weapons. The Vampirism Aura and Scrimshaw are really useful for this fight. Each one will replenish your health by 5% of damage dealt. These are really useful because if you're using a magic protection or deflect magic instead of soul split, you'll need something to replenish your health, and these two items will do just that. The Powder of Penance is really useful for this fight because it will replenish your prayer points by 2.5%. This works similar to the Penance Aura, which will replenish your prayer points by 5%, but the powder you can just use in your inventory. Each one lasts half an hour, so if you just take 2, it will last the whole duration of the boss instance, and it will just save on super prayer restores and anything that you use to restore your prayer. And lastly, I recommend the Kinetic Cyclone. Now this is the melee version of the Dwarf Multi-Cannon, and this will be really useful for this fight because it will deal with the Dark Core that will be spawning every now and then during the fight. I will show you this a little bit later on. Also, you can buy a Kinetic Cyclone upgrade kit, which basically boosts the damage from 100 to 150%. This is really useful because it's not that expensive and you just deal more damage using the Cyclone. Okay, so now on to the different attacks the Corporeal Beast does. Now in terms of mechanics, it's not as hard as other boss fights, but I will talk you through them anyway so you have a better understanding before you go into the boss fight yourself. The Corporeal Beast uses melee and magic auto attacks. It uses 3 different magic special attacks. One of the Corporeal Beast's attacks is called High Damage. It's indicated by a blast-like projectile. This attack can deal up to 4,500 magic damage if not protected against. Now if your damage output is high enough, I recommend using Soul Split. If your damage output isn't high enough, I recommend a magic deflection, prayer or curse. Another attack the beast might use is called Stat Draining. So a weaker, more transparent projectile. It deals less damage but drains the player's magic, summoning or prayer level. If these levels are already at 0, then the attack will instead deal a greater amount of damage. So if you're using overloads, the potion will automatically replenish any levels drained, excluding your prayer, but you can use a prayer replenishing potion to sort this out. If you don't have overloads, you can use targeted potions to replenish the stats. This requires more focus during the fight. You can also use a super restore flask to sort this out as well. Another attack the beast will use is called multi-hit, an extremely transparent and wavy orb that targets the tile the player is standing on. Upon impact with the player, it will do a relatively high amount of damage. If it does not hit a player, then it will shatter into 5 small orbs which rebound and can deal a lower amount of damage if they hit a player. All orbs have a 3x3 area of effect. So to deal with this, simply make sure your health is high enough to prepare for this attack. The last attack the Corporeal Beast can do is summon a Dark Energy Core. Now the cores are level 105, they will target and move towards the player or one of the players if you are fighting the beast with other people. If a player is within a 3x3 area of effect centered on the core, they will be dealt 400 to 600 hard typeless damage and lose 20 prayer points for every tick that they remain in the area. Damage dealt by the core will also restore the Corporeal Beast's health by the same amount. There is no limit to how many cores the Corporeal Beast can summon during a fight, and hits that deal over 5,000 damage will prompt the Corporeal Beast to almost immediately launch a core in response. So the easiest way to deal with these cores is by using AoE abilities. You can use Hurricane, Quake or Cleave, all three if they are available. If none of the abilities are available, it is best to run around the Corporeal Beast, so the core has to keep tracking the player until the abilities can be used. Okay, so now moving on to equipment loadout, we're going to start mid tier, then work our way on to high tier. So starting from the top left, I recommend a Vampire's Aura, Obsidian Cape, Amulet of Fury, Asylum Surgeon Ring, a Grasping Rune Pouch or any rune pouch you have available, a Mizuari Spear, Scrimshaw of Vampirism, Banados Helmet, Chestplate, Gloves, Tassets and Boots. Now onto the high tier, starting top left, I recommend the Vampire's Aura again, the Kiln Cape, the melee version, Essence of Finality or a Amulet of Souls, a Champion's Ring or something similar, a Grasping Rune Pouch or again any rune pouch you have available. A Masterwork Spear of Annihilation is the best spear you can use for this fight, the Scrimshaw of Vampirism, and for the armour I've gone for custom fit trimmed Masterwork Helmet, Plate Body, Plate Legs and Boots, but I've swapped out the gloves for Cinderbane. Okay, so moving on to inventory, again I'm going to start mid tier, then work my way on to high tier. So for mid tier I recommend Overload Flasks or War Master Potions, something like that, Super Prayer Renewals and Restore Flasks, and for the food I've gone for Tuna Potatoes, Powder of Penance, Kinetic Cyclone and some Cannonballs, a Holy Wrench, the Armoured Spikes, I've gone for the alloy version, an Ancient Elven Ritual Shard to restore your prayer points, an Enhanced Excalibur to restore your health, and Magic Note Paper as well. On to high tier, it's similar to mid tier, but I've swapped out my Overload Flasks for Supreme. I've gone for some Qualm Incense Sticks because I'm going to be using Cinderbane gloves, and this will pair well with my Weapon Poison plus flasks. Also, because my DPS will be higher with high tier, I've gone for less Restore Flasks because the Powder of Penance will restore my prayer points more, which means I have more room for food. This is the Revolution bar that I use when I fight the Corporeal Beast. This bar is really useful for dealing with the cores because the first two abilities are Quake and Hurricane, which are two AoE attacks. Also, the two abilities underlined in red are called Chaos Roar and Greater Fury. Now if you don't have Chaos Roar, you can remove this from your ability bar, and if you don't have Greater Fury, you can just use normal Fury for this fight. Okay, so now we have that all out of the way, I'm going to show you a couple of things before the boss fight. The first thing is just how to get to the boss a few different ways, and the second thing is just some advice to help you with any boss fight you have in the future. So yeah, let's get to it. Before we start the fight, I'm going to show you a few ways of getting to the beast. The first way is the longest way, and that's by making your way to the wilderness, and then you'll want to go to this location just here. Now, one way of getting to the cave is by teleporting to Varrock or the Grand Exchange, then making your way through the wilderness and outside the cave. Another way is by teleporting to the lodestone and then just making your way to the cave again. If you own the wilderness sword, you can teleport to this herb patch, then just make your way southeast outside the cave. There's a place in this city, you can use a lever on the west side, it will teleport you to this spot, go through the wilderness and again outside the cave. If you own the Ring of Kingship, you can use it to teleport to this location, go through the wilderness and again outside. Also, you can use these obelisks which are located in the wilderness. I believe there's 5 of them, so whichever one is closest you can teleport to then again make your way to the cave. Now another way of getting to the location of the Corporeal Beast is by using a games necklace. Now you can only use this method if you've completed the quest Summer's End. Now I think you need to complete the quest anyway to fight the Corporeal Beast, but grab yourself a necklace and then select one of the options and it will teleport you inside the cave. This is just reference of where you end up, and then you just make your way through the cave and then all the way to the end and you'll reach the Corporeal Beast. The fastest way of getting to the beast personally is by teleporting to War's Retreat. You can do this in your spell tab. Now you can only use this method if you've killed the beast at least once, but once you have, you can make your way down these steps and then what you have to do is reattune one of these two portals. You only have to do this once, so find the Corporeal Beast and there will be a small fee, but once you've paid it you can go through the portal as many times as you want, and then if you just go through you'll end up outside of the beast's location. Now lastly, just before we start the boss fight, is War's Shop. Now War's Shop is really useful because it has a number of different perks which can help you with boss fights. You can unlock things like the Altar of War, which will replenish your prayer and summoning points. There's these crystals just outside the portals which will give you adrenaline just before the boss fight. Then there are these fireplace upgrades which will give you a HP boost for 1 hour depending on the upgrade. Okay, now it's time to actually do the boss fight itself. So once you have your equipment ready and everything all sorted, it's time to start. So before I enter the boss fight, I like to just prepare outside. So what I do is drink my overload, my prayer renewal, activate the elven ritual shard and Excalibur, drink some weapon poison and use the powder of penance, right click overload and use all my incense sticks, then go over to my scrimshaw, activate it and then activate the vampir's aura, activate the prayers needed for the boss fight and then make sure I am on the right ability bar. Then once I've done all of that, I'll make a new instance by right clicking on the door frame, then starting a new one and then entering. So the first thing I do is surge, and then once I've surged I like to click a couple of spaces forward, deploy my cyclone, load the cannonballs and then just stand to the west. Now all I have to do is click on the beast or wait for the beast to hit me first, then just keep an eye on my health and wait until the beast is dead. So one thing I like to do is when I've started the boss fight is to make sure I've pressed all my prayers and activated my potions and then done everything necessary before entering the boss fight. Because sometimes when I've started an instance I might have not pressed my prayers by accident and I've started the boss fight and my health is dropping dramatically and I'm wondering why, and it turns out because I haven't pressed my prayers or I haven't done something like switch to the correct ability bar. So just make sure you've done all this before you start to make the fight a lot easier. Also call me wasteful, but I like to pick up specific items, not every single item the beast drops, so things like cannonballs and onyx bolts, mystic cloths, dragon hide, and then the unique drops like the sigils. Also another reason I do this is because I don't have the inventory space for every single item at the moment. I like to wait until I've used some of my food and then I have inventory space for stuff like battle staffs and stuff like that. I can use my magic notepaper to join them together, but for now I just look out for the more expensive items and then slowly make my way to other items if I want to pick them up. So if you don't deal enough DPS for this fight, if your weapon isn't high enough or you haven't got high enough armor and stuff like that, you might want to move around when the core lands on you. This is because the core will do hard typeless damage on you, 400 to 600 damage per tick, so you just want to keep moving around until your AoE abilities are available and that will take care of the core for you. Now another useful thing about the Corporeal Beast is sometimes it will drop a load of tuna potato. So this is really useful if you start running out of food and you're thinking about going to the bank. It will just replenish your inventory. Also if you have some notepaper on you and you're quick enough, you can pick up a whole load of tuna potato, then notepaper it, and then pick up some more. It drops so many, and you can just do this before the next encounter, and you can carry on with the boss fight. Okay, so I believe that sums up majority of everything to do with this boss fight. Some tips and tricks for this boss fight are to make sure you are pressing your overloads and renewals just before they run out, or if they have a minute or less left. Every now and then you can use your weapon poison as well. It lasts 12 minutes, so that is 2 times the amount of overloads and renewals. The powder of penance is really useful for this fight because you use less restore flasks, which means you have more room for food and more room for loot. Even with the medium loadout, you still save a ton of super restore flasks if you use the powder as well. For the higher loadout, Masterwork armor is really good because it divides the damage you are dealt into segments, which means you don't take the whole blow in one go, which means your soul split and your aura and your scrimshaw can work better at keeping your health higher. The medium tier loadout will not be as good as high tier naturally because the armor isn't as strong and the weapon isn't as powerful, so the Corporeal Beast will deal more damage towards you. So you might want to bring more food and make sure if your health drops below half to use the food, because the boss can deal quite high damage all of a sudden and you don't want to die from a sudden blow. Anything I have left out I will leave in the description, like tips and tricks and stuff like that. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I will try my best to answer them for you. So thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.